Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Stephen Lawson, who is an author and a military veteran, but also currently serving in the National Guard.
Hello.
Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
Now, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How did you come to fly helicopters?
Okay, so I'm in my 20th year of military service now. Right out of high school, I spent 5 years enlisted in the Navy. I was stationed on an aircraft carrier. I did 3 deployments with them. Started out Allied Force, and then I did right after 9/11. We got deployed for the immediate response for Operation Enduring Freedom, and then I got out right after the deployment for Iraqi Freedom. Um, got out, decided to go to college, so I spent 4 years doing undergrad at Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky. Um, got kind of bored of being a civilian, worked a couple odd jobs, and then joined the National Guard. One of my brother's friends actually hooked me up with an interview for flight school with the guy that was the brigade commander at the time. So I went down to Fort Rucker, got my wings, came back, and I've been flying ever since. So I enjoy it. It's fun. It's a good spot for me. So
Now, how did you get into the writing gig?
okay, so I've kind of been a writer a little bit. I guess I'd say my whole life. Like in high school, we had this extracurricular activity called Power of the Pen, like a creative writing thing. So I did that for a while and did some creative writing competitions and did pretty well at that. And then I wrote a little bit in the Navy, just it wasn't anything very good. It's stuff that would never see the light of day. And then I got out of flight school. I'm like, my gears were turning and stories were popping into my head. So I just started researching like where I could send my work and just, you know, sent stuff out to a few places, got into some semi-pro and amateur contest wins, and then I found Writers of the Future online and decided to enter that, and that's where I met you at the Writers of the Future workshop. It took me 2 tries. First one was an honorable mention, um, and I think I published that story somewhere else. And then the second time up, I got third place, and I think the second quarter with Moonlight One, and actually had a lot of stuff published in 2017. I published like 5 stories that year, with different venues like Daily Science Fiction and Galaxy's Edge, and let's see, Jim Bain Memorial Short Story Award. I got second place, and what's the other one? There's one more I'm not thinking. Oh, IGMS, which is kind of defunct now, but you can access the stories online for free. So I got some urban fantasy into that one with a story about a dragon trying to find his pet human. So that was fun. But yeah, that's kind of where I got into pro writing with short stories. I published a few things since then, been in some anthologies and best of kind of stuff. And then I guess worked my way up to where I had enough credibility that Tony would buy an anthology from me. So that's where we are.
So, what sorts of stories do you tend to write?
I write everything, and I guess that's just part of my personality is I get bored very easily. So I'll write one thing and be like, I don't want to work in this genre anymore, and some other story will pop into my head. And I've written like detective fiction, which my story for Writers of the Future is kind of like a locked room mystery. This couple is stationed by themselves on this moon base, and then one of them wakes up and the other one's dead. So who killed him? So I like a little bit of a mystery kind of thing. I like science fiction when the ideas come to me about like space colonies, which those are my 2 stories for the Jim Bain Memorial Short Story Award for 2017 and 2018. One was a colony on Mars, and one's a colony on Titan, the moon of Saturn, and just dealing with problems like cancer from cosmic radiation in the 2017 one, and then dealing with a kid that's trapped in underground ventilation tunnels and the poisonous gases on Titan, and how do you save a kid like that in those circumstances? So, and that one gets into robotics and communication and stuff like that too. I I write some fantasy. I write some out there weird fantasy, especially like during 2020 when everybody was kind of locked up. I started writing stranger and stranger things about, just people being trapped in kind of claustrophobic situations just because I had that feeling. So I just put it into some writing and the stories worked out okay. Galaxy's Edge just bought one of those not too long ago. Um, and I just actually self-published a novel not too long ago. It's been a few months. It's called Walk Away, but that is it's like Christian science fantasy kind of thing. I've got this guy who's he's from this like sinless, inherently immortal race, and they see it as their duty to go out and send one emissary out into the universe to help other races that are dealing with problems. Um, and I think I'm the most proud of that work. It's called Walk Away, and you can find it on Amazon. It's up for sale there, but I like it. There's a lot of me in that story, so. But I run the gamut. I write horror, fantasy, science fiction, detective fiction, all kinds of things. It's just whatever's in my head. I guess I write.
Are there any particular themes that you return to over and over again?
Um, Thematically, I think I do the best, and it's not even plot wise. I mean, obviously, I'm writing some stuff about like space colonies and things like that because I like thinking about how you would deal with a unique environment. Um, but I deal with some emotional angles more than I think maybe other male writers do, at least. I get into like romantic dysfunction fairly often, and people's lives just sort of falling apart and their minds getting crumbly and dealing with the relational aspects of things that don't turn out so great. And that was kind of like the Moonlight One story from Raiders of the Future. That was I use songs for inspiration too. I'll go down that rabbit hole. So if you've ever heard Jim Croce's Operator, that kind of inspired that song Moonlight One, and it's a guy lamenting this lost love and you know how he feels about this girl and all that stuff, and that kind of fed into that. The story that I put into the Robosoldiers anthology, I guess you could say, was inspired by the Killer's Mr. Brightside, because it's this guy just kind of going down this downward spiral because of things that are going on with him emotionally because of this girl. So it's a dysfunctional love triangle kind of a story. But it's also got little robots and military stuff and all the cool futuristic stuff. But I guess I start there. Um, I start with the relational angle that I want to tackle, and then I start layering other things on top of it, like the plot. Like, okay, what would this guy do for this girl that he can't be with? Would he give up stuff to be with her, or to save her husband if he's in trouble or something? Like, how much is he willing to give up of himself to help her and make her happy? So I guess those are the themes that I explore the most. Is the emotional aspect of the main character, and then honestly, for me, the tactical and science and all that stuff is kind of secondary to it. So,
Who would you say have had the major or the biggest influences on your writing?
um, so that depends on the writing project. I would say like my science fiction space colony stuff. That's probably a Robert Heinlein. Um, I would say for like the Christian space fantasy thing, I loved C.S. Lewis's space trilogy. If you're familiar with that, and I actually borrowed some elements from Out of the Silent Planet and kind of turned them around on themselves, to build that world. So C.S. Lewis, Robert Heinlein. I like a lot of the dark aspects of the Pendergast series, which is, you can pick those up anywhere. They're like a bestseller, kind of formulaic fiction by Douglas Preston Lincoln Child. I haven't read the last few. They kind of went on this arc with Pendergast that I didn't really like, but a lot of the earlier stuff where it's just straight up gothic horror, I enjoyed quite a bit. Michael Crichton, I love. I read everything by Michael Crichton. that I could get my hands on. I love his stuff. Let's see who else. Um, I think that's it probably for major influences, but I read all over the spectrum. Like I picked up Matt Walker's book. It's a nonfiction book, and he's a sleep scientist. And it's called "Why Do We Sleep?" And it's about you know healthy sleep patterns and dreaming and things like that. And I got down into some of the weeds with that and just started turning the gears in my head. And I wrote a couple of stories that were based on this guy basically infiltrating this dream world. And then he gets fatal familial insomnia, so he's going to die in about 6 months if he doesn't figure out a way to regain his ability to sleep and dream. Um, so I get inspiration from nonfiction stuff too. Honestly, I just read something on science and it'll just start my gears turning and be like, I want to write about that. So I do.
Now, you mentioned earlier about pitching your anthology Robosoldiers to Tony Weisskopf at Baen Books. How did that come about? So, where did the idea come from? And from that point, when did you pitch, and how did the pitch go? And was there any back and forth? Let's talk the audience through that process.
Okay, so the if you want to get into my mental process, some things just come to me as a joke, and then I just work with the joke because I've just got a weird like sense of humor that just like plays on words, just like puns pop into my mind, dad jokes and things like that. So the title was originally "Thank You for Your Servos." It's a subtitle now. Tony wanted to put Robo Soldiers on it, so it's Robo Soldiers colon Thank You for Your Servos. And I thought about writing this story, or maybe it was going to be a novella, or maybe a novel. I didn't know where it was going, but I started writing this thing and drafting this thing where there's a washed out combat robot, and he's been purchased and basically demilled for sale to this really rich family, and he's basically a plaything for this little girl. And this little girl, one of her friends goes missing, so they go on this rescue mission, and they kind of bond, and you get through some of the robots' combat experience and stuff like that. And I'd go driving or running or whatever, and I thought about the idea more. I'm like, there's a lot more to this idea if you get veterans to write about their specialties and maybe put some of their experiences into the future of robotics. Because this doesn't have to be a story about just one robot or one artificial intelligence. This can be all domains of warfare. It can be space, cyber, land, sea, air. You can put all of those in there and get more bang for the buck with a title like that. So that's where the idea for the anthology came about. I definitely knew that military science fiction is something that Baen does. I pitched a couple other things to Tony in the past, and then you were nice enough to share your pitch process with me. So I used that and contacted Tony. She said she liked it and sent me a contract not long after that.
Now, in putting together this anthology, what were some of the challenges that you had to wrestle with?
So I had kind of a wait, like it stalled, and that's once again something you're responsible for is kind of kicking me to keep the thing going. Because I contacted a few of what Baen considers A-list authors, and I had other writers that were interested, but I needed a big enough name to put on the cover. And so I went through a few people, and most of them weren't interested. And David Drake was nice enough to step in and say, "Yeah, I'll put my name on this project." And with the list of the other authors that I had, Doug Beeson actually joined after that on the project, and I had Martin and some other people. And so I gave Tony my list of names, and she said, "Yeah, this will work. Let's do it."
Any other challenges in putting together the project?
And putting it together, I wouldn't say challenges. It's really labor intensive because I get a little bit OCD about the quality of what I'm doing, because I care about my reputation. I don't want to deliver something that's substandard. So I've probably read every story in the anthology 10 times. I've had my computer read it to me. Um, and then with copy edits, I've gone back and re-edited again. And, it just, um, I get to the point where I get a little bit, I don't want to say sick of looking at it, but it's just, my brain starts to shut down a little bit now if I look at any of the stories and they're like, I can't look at the work anymore. Like, I love the anthology. I think it's a great anthology, but I've looked at it so many times that um, it's I can't look at it anymore. So
Well,
um,
get ready, because once you start promoting it, you're gonna have to start talking about it over and over and over and over and over again. I'm doing the
yeah,
same thing with the Weird World War IV anthology, and it's been out for 2 months, three
yeah,
months. So yeah, just get used to that.
yeah.
In terms of some of the stories, can you comment on any of the stories without giving too much away?
I would say for overall content for people that are watching your show, it turned out a little bit darker than I anticipated. I was kind of going with a dad joke of a title, and then I started reading some of the stories. Mona Lisa gets a little dark. Your story got a little darker than I expected, but you're a horror writer. I should have expected it. And then Weston Osha's story definitely gets into some grisly, dark material. There are a couple of lighthearted stories in there. MT Wrighton, his story is the first in the anthology, and his is, I'd say it's PG 13 ish. Great story about a team up between this young lieutenant, female lieutenant, and her combat robot NCO that they've been sent to a communications outpost. Um, and there's a lot of playful humor in that one. There's a lot of playful humor in the last story in the anthology, which is Operation Meltwater by Philip Kramer. Um, and I love both of those stories tremendously. There's a lot of deep strategy and things like that in Philip Purnell's The Rules of the Game, and he gets into like AI processes and how to defeat an AI and what a war between, or not really a war, but a conflict over Taiwan with China, what it would look like, and how the U.S. might be able to help. And I love the strategy and the deep thought that he put into that. There are a few that are more just straight up gunfights. T.C. McCarthy's Handyman. He gets into kind of like the cyborgs on the moon. He's got a lunar warfare story, but it's also a good old country boy kind of story, going to try to help out his friend. Um, yeah, it really runs the gamut. I mean, you get lighthearted humor and you got really dark, um, horrific material in there. So I think anybody that picks it up could find something that they would like, but I definitely wouldn't let your kids pick it up off the shelf unattended either. So yeah, I think it's got a pretty broad spectrum of things that would appeal to anyone.
Now, what other things that you've written should readers check out?
Um, I guess it's asking what do I like the best out of what I've written. I've got I've got a collection of my short stories that's available on Amazon. It's called Leaders Taste Better and Other Stories. And the cover art is from that story, the 2017 story from IGMS called Leaders Taste Better, and it's about a dragon. And he can disguise himself as a human if he wants to. He just shapeshifts and pulls part of himself out of our reality, and he looks like a man. Um, but he's decided that he likes the taste of leaders the best because they have less cortisol in their system because of a reduced stress response. So he likes eating people in leadership positions better. Um, so it gets into some biochemistry too, and then he goes on this rescue mission. But that's got all of my.
Let me stop you there. Why do leaders have less cortisol?
So oh, I need to think of her name, but I mentioned it at the beginning of that story. But there's a TED talk by this lady that talks about. She's talking about biochemistry. So, like in primates, when a primate is basically chosen for an alpha position, he will get more testosterone in his system. it reduces his cortisol and his stress response. So if you see people that are natural leaders, they're usually calm, cool, and collected. That's not just temperament.
Right.
It's it's a primate biochemistry. When you're placed in leadership positions, your body will reduce your stress responses to things, as long as you see yourself as fit for that leadership position, or the primate sees himself as fit for that leadership position. Your body's automatically going to increase your testosterone, reduce your cortisol for your stress response. So if you've ever eaten meat that has from a stressed out animal, it's not going to taste as good. So this dragon has decided he likes the taste of leaders better because they have less of a stress response. So their meat isn't tainted by stress chemicals. So that's where I got the logic for that one.
That actually explains a lot. That's why being in a leadership position is like 50 times less stressful than having to report to somebody. At least for me, like
Yeah.
it's not even close.
I'm drawing a blank right now because it's been so long since I watched it, but it is a really good TED talk, and she talks about like interview tips and stuff like that, and how to reduce your stress in interviews and body language and all kinds of stuff. But I watched it and I was like, hey, there's a story right there. It's another.
What'd she say? Take control of the interview, basically.
Not take control of the interview. No, she's talking about expansive body language, and I've seen it on other shows where people are doing these like wild, crazy, expansive gestures, like you're the biggest bird in the yard or whatever, and just how you sit instead of being leaned over forward and your arms crossed and shielding yourself. You're laid back with your hands behind your head and your feet kicked back. It's just relaxed body language will make you relaxed, basically. So she talks a lot about that kind of stuff. It's basically you telling your body what to do and your body telling your brain what to do in the process.
What about people reacting to that sort of response? I'll be honest with you. Like if I go into a room and somebody's doing this kind of crap, it
Yeah,
increases my level of aggression.
because you want to be the alpha male. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean those are and not a lot of people. I shouldn't say not a lot of people. I think we instinctively pick up on nonverbal language like that, but I don't think enough people analyze it on a conscious level. How it's emotional intelligence, it's emotional awareness, it's understanding just by somebody's facial gestures how your body language is affecting them. So if I see that I'm kicked back like that, and Sean Hazlett comes into the room, and I just see this angry look on his face because he wants to be an alpha male. Raw, I'm Sean Hazlett, and I want to be in charge. I don't know. I could adapt my body language to you, and maybe we could get along better and work something out. So I try not to be, a total butthole about things. I don't want to let people walk on me either. But I generally go for a cooperative atmosphere. So um, if I feel like people are shutting down or something like that because of my body language, or I'm too aggressive, or I'm withdrawn too much or something like that, I like reading and watching videos about body language and stuff. So I'll try to adapt, how I'm coming across to make other people more comfortable around me, and I try to create a win-win atmosphere most of the time, honestly.
Yeah, like my gut reaction to that is I see as a sign of disrespect or a sign that somebody thinks they're better than me.
Yeah.
Which
So
is
yeah, I think
which fits into exactly what you were saying.
yeah, and I,
Right.
I think we're just wired differently. I think, and I know you've been in the corporate world a lot, and I realize I'm not wired like other people, but
Mm.
uh, I think there's another TED talk by I watch a lot of TED talks. There's another TED talk by Adam Grant where he talks about givers, takers, and matchers in the corporate environment. I would say I'm a giver. Like I want people to be happy, and I'm usually willing to sacrifice to make other people happy. I'd say you're a matcher. You want people to be on an even kill, give and
That's
take.
right. I am like the purest possible matcher, and I can smell takers,
Yeah,
and I get very aggressive around them.
yeah. I sometimes I just avoid them. Sometimes I confront them directly. Takers. It just depends on how
Oh,
damaging
I
that.
seek them out and I make them uncomfortable. Like I will deliberately make them uncomfortable because I despise them.
Yeah.
But God, I want to hear more about what a taker is, even though I had such a strong opinion and you didn't even define it.
Yeah, no, I mean I think the terms are pretty easily self-evident, but the taker is your compensating sociopath, your narcissist who just wants to take from other people and is harmful to the team environment.
Yeah.
But they have to compensate because in any team environment there are going to be social norms that are going to punish that kind of behavior. So either they adapt and they make it less evident to the narcissistic sociopath, or they incur penalties from the group because of that. So Adam Grant talks about if you're in a leadership position, protecting your givers, because givers are going to do the most good for the group. Maybe helping them be better matchers, so that they don't get taken advantage of or whatever.
But they burn out the fastest, though, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, if you don't have if
Yeah.
you have a match, not a matcher, but a giver without boundaries, if they so obviously takers have to have compensating behaviors, so they're not noticed and shunned by the group. But givers have to have compensating behaviors so they don't get taken advantage of too. So as long as that giver knows how to make boundaries, and as long as the group is not trying to take advantage of them, they won't get burnt out. But if you have the narcissistic sociopath with compensating behaviors that's all of a sudden the CEO of your company, because that happens sometimes, then yes,
Sometimes.
then you're going to burn your givers out, and you're going to end up harming the team environment. Um, so yeah, I agree with Adam Grant on a lot of things. I read his posts and watch his TED talks and stuff, and um, yeah, I've gotten a lot out of his stuff. I definitely peg myself as a giver. Maybe sometimes I'm a matcher, but I don't think I've ever been a taker a day in my life. So um,
What's the relative frequency of those sorts of types in an organization? Are they evenly balanced, or is there sort of a
and it's been a while since I've watched that one too. But I think most people are matchers, and I'm mixing it in with some other personality types, like people that wait to be told what to do versus people that do exactly the right thing in a disaster, and people that do exactly the wrong thing and die. Um, I I know the majority, like the majority under that bell curve, are going to be the matchers. That's most people, and then you have those minorities on either end that are narcissistic sociopath takers, and then the bend over backwards sacrificial givers. So I don't have a percentage memorized, but it's one of Adam Grant's things. It's not hard to find if you look at TED.
yeah, so sorry to take us on a little bit of a
Oh
diversion, but I thought it was interesting.
no, yeah, we're going down a rabbit hole. It's interesting to me too.
So if what sorts of projects are you working on right now?
I'm working on some personal projects. Like I say, it's my 20th year in the military. Writing wise, not a lot. I've gone through some changes in the last couple of years, I guess. Just lifestyle wise and mentally and things like that. I like flying, so I always, jump on any flights that interest me. Like, you know, I don't want to get into all our operational stuff, but I, I guess that's another different thing in how I'm wired. Is I'm not, um, and you and I have talked about this, but a lot of people are wired by what's going to pay the most, and I work with people like that in multiple environments, and I'm not really wired that way. Like I'm wired to help people. I need to feel like I'm benefiting other people in some way that rewards me emotionally, and I like to do things that are fun. So um, if it was the choice between making 30 grand a year and doing something where I was really helping people as long as I could keep food on the table, or working in an office and making $1 million a year, I'd take the 30 grand a year job. So money, I don't know. My life is, I guess I've been blessed, but I don't.
Yeah, working in a corporate environment will knock that attitude right out of your head.
I wouldn't work in a corporate environment, so
Yeah.
it's I I I select I select occupations, and I've got a few skill sets. I mean, I've got options, but I select occupational environments where I feel valued, where I feel like I'm helping other people, and where I'm, honestly enjoying the work. So, I mean, that's how I got into flying. I mean, circling back and going down a rabbit hole, my granddad was a pilot, and I mentioned that in the editor's introduction for no, actually the dedication for Robosoldiers. He was an Air Force pilot and he flew for Eastern Airlines, but he taught me and my brother how to fly a Cessna 170, which he owned when I was in like third grade. So I've been flying most of my life.
Wait,
First
wait,
thing,
wait, wait, stop. You, he taught you how to fly a plane when you were 8 years old?
yeah, yeah, it took me and my brother up, and yeah, we were flying the Cessna 170. And he taught me how to do, shallow turns, steep turns, all that stuff. We didn't like go inverted or anything like that, but and I
You,
didn't do
you
takeoff.
didn't do landings either, did you?
I didn't do takeoffs or landing.
Okay.
I
Uh, uh,
was. He backed me on the controls for a takeoff a couple times when I was a wee lad, but landings, no, I didn't do landings until much later in life because I've taken some private airplane lessons too. I've gotten up to soloing, but honestly, um, and this probably won't make sense unless people watching your show are pilots, but I like helicopters. Airplanes are okay, but I don't like what airplanes can do as much as I like what helicopters can do. I like being able to come to a hover and set down anywhere I want to. I like being able to make a vertical climb and put somebody on a rope or whatever, which I've done a few times. Um, I like I like the maneuverability of helicopters, and getting in an airplane after you've been a helicopter pilot almost feels like a handicap to me. It's
yeah.
like, why won't this thing come to a hover unless I've got a headwind strong enough to keep me at a hover at 3,000 feet or whichever, which I've done too. I've hovered an airplane, so that is possible as long as you got enough headwind.
I did not know airplanes could hover, but I can see what you mean. I took Cessna lessons a long time ago, and I got to the landing stage. The flying
Yeah,
part is pretty flying, navigating, pretty easy stuff.
yeah.
Landings, not fun. Not fun and
Nose
very
down,
hard to
round out,
do.
clear. That's all you got to do. It's a little different in a tail dragger though, because you don't want to like come down too hard on the tail, but you want to tail dragger, which is what I learned on first. You want to settle the front gear first, and then set the tail down, nose down, round out flare for tricycle gear. You want to touch the two wheels first, and then land the front of the plane, or close to a 3 point landing. But like the Blackhawk's a tail dragger too, but we land that differently. If you do a roll on landing, you're gonna hit the tail wheel first, and then settle down the front gear. So it's just depends on the airframe.
Are there any other things that you'd want the audience to know about you that I didn't ask you?
Anything else I want the audience to know about me? I talked about Walk Away. That's probably my favorite project that I've done writing ever. It's the only novel I've successfully gotten through because most novels I start plotting and then I start writing them and the ideas just get too weird in my head. But Walk Away was just like start to finish. This makes sense to me, and this is what I want to write. Um, but no, I think for Robo Soldiers, I tried to put. I don't want to say this. I put a lot of real experiences and kind of put them in this blender and made them unrecognizable to anybody, and then put them into the story that I wrote, Nightingale. And it's about a helicopter pilot whose mind is getting a little bit crumbly. Um, so I enjoyed writing that. It was a fun journey to write. Um, but Yeah, I think if people pick up Robo Soldiers, they're going to see a lot of the real world experience that comes into each of the military writers, in the things that they write about, that they chose to write about, based on their experience. So I think
Now, when does Robo Soldiers come out, and where can people find it?
it comes out June 7th. Should be in all major bookstores. They can find it at Bain.com or Amazon.com if they do their shopping online. I believe the purchase price is $18. I don't have that in front of me. But yeah, major booksellers, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, Amazon. But obviously, go to Bain first because they're the publisher. So, but if you like Amazon, it's out there on Amazon also.
All right. Well, thank you, my friend, and thank you for spending time on my show. I appreciate it. Make sure everyone in the audience should go out and pre-order Robo Soldiers today so that it can reach your inbox by June 7th. And thanks again, Stephen.
Thanks, Sean.
If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.